The simple definition of a petrodollar is the revenue from oil in mainly Middle Eastern countries, a revenue that is denominated in US dollars, not the currency of the countries where the oil comes from. All those nations that export their oil must sell it in dollars, so if the dollar loses value, so does their oil. But countries also peg their real currency to the dollar. That means fixing their currency with the dollar. So if the dollar fluctuates, so does their currency. If the dollar value lowers, so do the goods and services of that country. This ensures those countries don't experience wild swings in inflation or deflation. So what exactly is the relation between petrodollars and real dollars?
Petrodollars are oil revenues denominated in US dollars. They are the primary source of revenue for many oil exporting members of OPEC, as well as other oil exporters in the Middle East, Norway, and Russia. Because petrodollars are denominated in US dollars, or greenbacks, their true purchasing power relies on both the core rate of US inflation and the value of the US dollar. This means petrodollars will be affected by economic factors the same way the US dollar is affected. So if the value of the dollar falls, so does the value of petrodollars, and thus the government's revenue. The origins of the petrodollar system go back to the Bretton Woods Agreement, which replaced the gold standard with the US dollar as the reserve currency. Under the agreement, the US dollar was pegged to gold, while other global currencies were pegged to the US dollar. But because of the massive stagflation, President Nixon announced in 1971 that the greenback would no longer be exchanged for gold to boost economic growth for the US. That led to the creation of the petrodollar system, where the US and Saudi Arabia agreed to set oil prices in US dollars. That meant any other country that would purchase oil from the Saudi government would have to exchange its currency into US dollars before completing the sale. That led the remaining OPEC countries to follow suit and price their oil in US currency.
Well, in the USA, the price of oil has collapsed to a record low as demand dries up and storage runs out. The price of a barrel of West Texas Intermediate, which is the benchmark for US oil, today traded as low as minus $40 a barrel. It's the first time the price has turned negative in history. It led to a day of chaos in the oil market. So let's talk to our business correspondent in New York, Michelle Fleury. Essentially, producers are paying to offload the oil, Michelle.
Yeah, I mean, this is unprecedented what you're seeing in the oil industry. Chaos that hasn't existed as far back as people have been recording the price of oil. Now, what has happened is that with all of us staying home, not driving around, not getting on planes, demand has essentially vanished. The result, around the world, there is too much crude oil. And so today what we saw is a drop in the price of a key US benchmark, West Texas Intermediate, to below zero. Again, this has never been seen before. And what it means is that traders are essentially paying to get rid of this oil, that there is so much that is being stored because people just aren't buying the oil, that refineries aren't taking this oil, that they are saying, well, we don't want any new deliveries in the month of May. Now, we're not expecting to see any recovery until there is a pickup in demand. And of course, that will depend on how this health crisis unfolds.
The oil and gas sector has suffered a tumultuous start to 2020 in the wake of COVID-19. Overall, the energy sector, a key pillar of many FDI strategies, is forecasted by global data to face downward earning revisions of 208% in 2020, with the shock compounded by the oil price crash. A barrel of oil is priced in US dollars across the world. When the US dollar is strong, you need fewer US dollars to buy a barrel of oil. When the US dollar is weak, the price of oil is higher in dollar terms. Oil prices have decreased by around 50% since January 2020, with the US market reporting record lows. With countries on lockdown, there is significantly less of all activity, and the demand for oil and gas has fallen spectacularly. The International Energy Agency reported that oil demand is likely to decrease by 29 million barrels per day in April 2020 and by 23.1 million barrels per day in Q2 2020. Thus, the sector has seen an imbalance of oversupply and less demand, further exacerbating the price crash. This has trickled down and impacted a number of sectors that usually pull FDI focus, including the chemical, plastic, and automotive sectors. This has also caused a liquid storage crisis, with many facilities reaching maximum capacity. On 20th April, for the first time in history, oil prices went below zero, when US price marker West Texas Intermediate was trading for May delivery at minus 4.29 USD. Oil storage has gotten so bad that producers are literally paying buyers to take the oil deliveries. Oil companies such as Shell and ECON are making moves to counteract oversupply issues by delaying LNG project constructions. The United States has historically been a net importer of oil. Rising oil prices causes the United States trade balance deficit to rise, as more dollars are needed to be sent abroad. The former still holds true today, the latter not so much. Due primarily to the success of horizontal drilling and fracking technology, the US shale revolution has dramatically increased domestic petroleum production. In fact, the United States became a net exporter of refined petroleum products in 2011 and has now become the largest producer of crude oil, overtaking Saudi Arabia and Russia. However, in late March, as international media focused on Trump's tariffs and the prospects of a trade war, renminbi-denominated oil contracts began trading in the Shanghai International Energy Exchange for the first time. This will foster the rise of the petro-yuan, which may cause a dramatic shift in global asset allocations as institutional investors begin to diversify into China's onshore bond markets, and this may cause harm to the US monopolistic oil business. Today, the status quo is still very different. The US dollar and the euro still dominate more than 85% of the international payments, followed by the English pound, Japanese yen, Swiss franc, Canadian dollar, and Chinese yuan, which accounts for 1%. Following its integration into the global economic and trading environment, China is now integrating into the global financial system. It is already the world's biggest trading country, has the largest foreign exchange reserves, and the world's biggest consumer market. As China now absorbs most of the world's commodities, dollar-denominated intermediaries are not warranted, if they ever were.